Hello, welcome back to another CPaaSAA Talk. This time I'm here with Peter Arbitter, the new Chief Commercial Officer at Aduna, and Fraser King, Senior Director Network API at Vonage. Great to have you here, gentlemen.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And I'm going to start with a look back at MWC in Barcelona a couple of weeks ago. Because with all the buzz about network APIs and AI that was there, what's one takeaway that really surprised you and made you rethink the direction of the industry? Peter, can I start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, I have to mention two. I'll keep it short. The one thing is that years ago, we had to explain what network APIs are all about. This no longer is really the matter. So people directly reached out to us and we went into a very deep, detailed discussion. That was great. And the other thing is looking back probably half a year ago when we'd announced Aduna, many questions about the business model, the value proposition, what this is all about. Still, there are some questions, but by far not as many as I had to answer half a year ago.
Excellent. And for you, Fraser, how was it for you in your role at Vonage now and the history at Vodafone and with network APIs and everything that's happening?
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with Peter's comments. Network APIs was probably one of the most talked about subjects across infrastructure vendors, CPaaS providers, system integrators, and a wider ecosystem. So if you look back, the year before, Vonage was very much pioneering the network API program along with Ericsson. You copy that to now, many of our major competitors are making announcements. They're getting involved with the program. They're talking about use cases. They're talking about capabilities. So as much as it's always nice to be in a leadership position, it's great to have strong competition, and it's great to see wider industry adoption of these technologies and this topic. And I think one of the standout, a lot of announcements around system integration supply. But certainly one of the standout announcements was the presentation that was done by Cabify, who's a client of Vonage, who's actually implemented network APIs in their consumer application. And to hear the CIO of Cabify talk about the benefits they're receiving from a conversion rate, from a better return on investment, a better user experience. Again, it's great to see real customers out talking about tangible results from this program.
Yeah, I agree. I had that same feeling that network APIs are really part of all the stories everywhere and not a separate subject anymore. It's really integrated in what's happening there. Peter, I think a year ago you were there with your Deutsche when you were still at Deutsche Telekom. Now Aduna, and Aduna, of course, is the company that until maybe 2 months ago was known as the JV. Can you quickly, for those people that don't understand exactly how it works, can you briefly describe Aduna, how that works as a JV with the telcos, and how the separation, let's say, is between Vonage and Aduna?
Yep. So these 10 telcos came together, and they have chosen a technology partner, and in this case, it was Ericsson, and they have created a joint venture that was announced in September, or they announced the plans to create a joint venture, to be really 100% correct, because we are in the final phases of closing. So closing has happened yet, and we expect that to happen over the next couple of weeks. These 10 telcos decided to do so because they have realized out of past experiences, and if you just look at the Mobile Connect APIs, so the authentication APIs, they sit there since almost 10 years. They got specified in 2015, but if we are very honest to ourselves, there wasn't that much of adoption over the past 10 years. And the problem with this kind of platform businesses is all around: what are you doing with demand if you have no supply, and what you are doing with supply if there's no demand? The typical chicken and egg challenge. In this particular case, creating now that joint venture it's stipulating one side. It's stipulating the supply side, because all at a sudden these 10, and we have announced additional more. So currently we have 14 investors, and we are growing this one independent from the number of investors through commercial partners. So we are now representing, we have started to represent more than 50% of SIM cards on a global basis, and we are growing this one significantly. So this is the reason. It's all about accelerating the speed of the supply side to then have the demand side kicking out or kicking on. But that's also all around simplification. No one really wants to sign several hundreds of contracts with the telcos, which are typically quite complicated. So simplification, one SLA, simplified pricing scheme. This is the second reason, and then it's all around efficiency. I mean, we as Aduna would like to solve a problem a telco would have just once on behalf of the telco industry, instead of now everyone solving that by themselves. So this is the efficiency game. Now, Aduna is set up slightly different to past joint ventures the industry has seen by having chosen this strong partner, owning 50% of the future company. That makes it by far significantly faster in deciding, because Ericsson just needs one of the CSPs, and not the CSPs need to agree on something. It's really a fast decision-making process. So this is why I also believe that this is set up for success and really will help the industry.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up, because that was a question I had. How do you get the decision-making process efficient and quick if you have, at the moment, 14 telcos? But that explains the strong role from Ericsson there.
Let me add one more thing, because we also always said this is not a board-led endeavor, it's a management team-led endeavor. So the number of topics which are handled by the board is really limited. So we have a management team in place. We have Anthony, a strong CEO. We have chosen the different positions quite wisely, representing different areas of the industry. And it's a management team which leads Aduna and not the board.
Excellent. Fraser, from your point of view, because you also, I mean, you were at an operator until last year, I think, or 2 years ago, and now at Vonage, you also witnessed that sort of change in pace, and now especially around network APIs. How is that working out for you, and how do you see Vonage now taking advantage of the aggregated APIs that Aduna is taking to market? How does that help you?
Yeah. I mean, you know, Vonage. I mean, we're a CPaaS provider. We do UCaaS, we do CCaaS, but we're all about making it easy for developers, for customers to integrate communication services into their applications, be that voice, be that video, different messaging channels as well. We have a large, out of those businesses, we have a large fraud prevention capability as well, so protecting our customers and our networks from communications fraud, but also building additional services that we then provide into those customers to protect their end users and their customers. You mentioned, you're right, I mean, I did 10 years in Vodafone Group. I helped set up for the first generation of network APIs under the GSMA's Mobile Connect program. And I think a lot of the learnings that have gone into Aduna, gone into Open Gateway, other learnings from that program. That program was incredibly successful in its early phase because it focused around a handful of really well-defined client problems and solutions where there was data and capability in the network that just needed to be opened up and made available, whether that was to banking, financial services. But also it was very limited in its scale. I think there's less than 10 countries around the world that have full coverage for the likes of SIM swap, number verification. So although this program found some nice niches, pockets, did well in the UK, did well in the US, some great stuff happening in Brazil, when Vonage sits down with our customers who are operating across the entire European region and in many cases operating across the entire world, what these customers are looking for is they're looking for global availability of these services. It's very, they're not motivated to be solving 10% or 20% of their authentication challenges. So they're looking at, how do I do this at scale across the world in a consistent way? So we completely back, the ambition and the intent of Aduna, creating a single telco grade platform. This thing is, built and engineered by Ericsson. Ericsson knows how to build these things. It's not built by, some kind of mysterious, third party, right? This is being built as telco grade infrastructure, having a single interface, both commercially and technically, basically gives us access to the building blocks that we are putting into our high level services on a global basis at global scale. So we don't, in Vonage, our focus is not really around selling the raw materials and the APIs. It's about using these APIs to create more compelling and more relevant higher level propositions, be they in the CPaaS space, be they in the fraud prevention space, be they in connectivity, network insights. So, I mean, for us, it's making our life a lot more efficient, and just having a single interface and a single way of doing business. It means you're not building services around the lowest common denominator. You're actually building something truly that is universal and kind of harmonized globally.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad you mentioned doing business globally, because I think that's really what it's all about now, this year and next year, right? In a way, the supply side is taken care of. I don't think it's solved or sorted. I mean, there's a lot of work on your plate, Peter, with your team at Aduna, but it's sort of structured. And now I think everybody's looking at the demand side and really the applications that are going to be developed. So also looking back at mobile world, what do you take home from there? What's the business models that you see emerging, or where do you see the revenues starting to appear, let's say, this year?
So the industry has talked about authentication use cases, fraud prevention use cases over the past years. I mean, that was quite obvious because with the Mobile Connect history, and that was there, as mentioned before, since 10 years, and it was well known. But we are now seeing additional use cases arising. And I was really surprised how often I was pulled in discussions which were all around age verification. So that was probably also a key learning for me. I had thought location retrieval is the next big thing, and most likely there's not the one and only single big thing, like with the killer apps everyone was looking for when 3G came around the corner. And actually it were many apps which then really made it. But age verification and things like dating platforms who would like to ensure that the age is probably right, which is presented there, and all kind of things where I was not really thinking about these kind of use cases where everyone hosts their library of use cases, and this is above 100 in the meanwhile, but still there are a lot of new things arising. And that was probably the one take. The other take, which also now coming to location, is really promising, is the retail industry, and many discussions there where retailers would like to solve the problem that customers aren't as transparent in the on-prem world as they are in the online world. And if it gets somehow the same kind of transparency in practice, always ensuring that customers have given their consent. But if so, then the same level of transparency that talks to a number of APIs, number verify, location retrieval, KYC, so a full set, and not just number verify or SIM swap, what the entire industry talked about in the past years. So that was really exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I think we had a great talk about that retail experiment or demo that you had started at Deutsche, and it's really interesting to see those worlds blend. And Fraser, I was at the Ericsson well, I'm not going to say booth. I mean whole, right? It's almost half of MWC. It's this big Ericsson space, and I saw some of the demos that started maybe last year, a year ago, as sort of a proof of concept, like Sony with their cameras with quality on demand built in. We're now almost at the point, or really at the point, that they're being used. They're in the market, and some other real life examples. And I like how the the approach seems to be more vertical, right? We're talking more about use cases in certain verticals where we're trying to solve real pains instead of all the beautiful things that a certain API could do. So, from your point of view, Fraser, what are the most important verticals or specific use cases that you're looking at for this year?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, you have to start with the use case. I think, for too many years, we've spent far too much time talking about the technology. Certainly the customers that we engage with, the technology is secondary. What they want to know is they want to understand how can you help them solve their problems, and solving those problems will always require a mix of technology, capability, intellectual property, and so forth. I mean, Peter touched on the authentication use cases, the fraud prevention stuff. But again, that will continue to be a massive focus for this program. I think I heard a stat a couple of years back that said if financial crime is a country, it would be the 5th largest economy in the world. Huge social impact, huge economic impact, and the data that exists inside of mobile networks, the importance of the mobile phone, the mobile network in that defense is absolutely kind of a certain. I think what we're seeing, I mean, we certainly see, obviously, fraud prevention authentication sits across every industry now. Anybody who's doing anything digitally, Peter mentioned, online dating. We're very aware of romance scams. Romance scams are one of the most well known, and romance scams are perpetuated because anyone can join a dating platform without any requirement to kind of prove who they are or KYC. Right? There's no regulation. Those companies want to make it easy for people to just use and consume those services. So we certainly see that application across any digital business. Be it banking, the Cabify one was a really interesting example. Cabify is a mobility provider. Mobility is a service. Yes, they want to protect users on their platform and keep people safe, but really what their focus is around user experience. How do they make it easy for all types of users to consume their services? And again, the presentation that was done by the CIO of Cabify, where he talked about time is money. Removing making the onboarding process for Cabify from a 20-second exercise down to a 5-second exercise, right? They see that as being really, really material, to their business. I think we saw some really interesting, we're starting to see some more interesting quality on demand examples. I think there was a really good demo on the Ericsson booth or city or whatever we're calling it, where NVIDIA was showing how they're using QOD in the mobile network to deliver a VR experience as part of a automotive showroom. So you've just bought you're just about to buy a new car. It could be a BMW, could be a Mercedes, could be anything. You effectively use the Apple Vision Pro. All of this kind of being rendered inside of NVIDIA's GDN as a way of seeing all of the options on that vehicle. And I mean, for me, that was the most impressive demonstration I think I saw at Mobile World Congress. You put the Apple Vision Pro on, you could have sworn you were looking at a real vehicle sitting there on the ground. And that's that's a reaction where IT systems and car dealerships, Wi-Fi, don't have the performance to deliver that experience. They can't deliver the downlink consistently. They can't deliver the latency requirements. So we're seeing more of these really immersive applications that require the characteristics of a 5G standalone network, technologies like QID giving you this ability to fire up a dynamic amount of capacity for that time and that service. So we're seeing a lot of stuff inside of that space, media related, video related, XR, gaming, but even e-commerce transactions, providing a level of assurance at the point of completing an e-commerce transaction. We're seeing a lot of interest in some of these areas as well. So yeah, a lot of use cases, a lot of different industries and verticals really starting to explore these technologies and try and understand what is the value dynamic. How does this change the experience? What is the value of that experience? And then that figures out, how do you price and kind of commercialize these services inside of the realities of an applied market.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up NVIDIA at the end of this talk here, because of course AI is a big disruptor and accelerator for everything that we're doing in this space. Now, if you look ahead a year from now, Mobile World Barcelona 2026, for each of you, what does success look like a year from now? What should we have achieved then? Peter, you go first.
Yeah, I mean, earlier you'd ask about Aduna and Vonage, how do they fit together? And it becomes very obvious listening to Fraser and myself. I mean, we are the wholesale company who is enabling then the Vonages of the world to drive the business forward with the enterprises. So this is why in our world, it's all about enabling and kickstarting this market and ensuring that we have global coverage and have an easy to use and easy to consume setup. This is now all around this scaling factor, and that translates into, we have given ourselves a target of 17 countries where we would like to see full coverage by the end of this year. So since MWC is then gives us almost an additional quarter, so that will be beyond the 17. And that it doesn't mean that we don't have additional CSPs onboarded in the one other country. It's just speaking about the full country coverage. And as you can imagine, these 17 represent quite attractive markets. So we have selected them based on attractiveness for our customers. And with that, we really go beyond the 80% of SIM card coverage on a global basis. So this is the supply side. If we look at our platform and if we look at what I've mentioned earlier, that we would like to solve things just once, which otherwise the CSPs have to solve multiple times. So we are not only finalizing the functionality of our platform, we are now looking at additional things we could take over. Fraser mentioned the topic of the application onboarding, which is currently taking a little too long. Could we do that on behalf of the CSPs? Because otherwise the CSPs need to do that for themselves, and that means multiple times. So can we drive efficiency forward by taking this one over? That's the second topic, and we are evaluating a few things where we could drive efficiency and a better customer experience. And then when it comes up to the customers, so to the channels, I mean, we have given ourselves 6 channels, and you will see quite some logos alongside these 6 channels, be it the hyperscalers, be it additional CPaaS players to the ones we have now onboarded. We talk intensively with the GSI, the Global System Integrator community, because they are really important for enterprises to understand the full potential, and they are bridging somehow also the gap between our capabilities and customer needs. So GSIs, you will find, most likely you will have seen then the announcement of 3 strategic partners by them. Digital natives is a big one because they directly know what they use and what they might use and would like to get started with. And finally, ISVs as similar to the digital natives. And last but not least, the CSPs buying back the APIs. So these 6 channels we will have enabled, not fully, but you will see for each of the channels quite some representatives of what we have achieved by that.
Wow, that's impressive. If you achieve all of that, I think that's a huge step forward. Fraser, for you, same question. A year from now, Mobile World Barcelona. What does success look like for Vonage?
I mean, I definitely from a supply perspective, having those 17 countries enabled, for as many services as possible. So, we're starting with the fraud prevention stuff. We're seeing a little bit of QoD starting to come into the market. But, I think there's about 40 APIs now that have been ratified under Camara. I mean, if I had a magic wand, it would be, I want all of those 40 APIs available across all 17 countries, which, I give Peter that challenge. I'll buy you dinner anywhere in the world if you can deliver it. But, for me, demand is not the problem. We sit in front of customers every single day, and they talk about problems and challenges they have, and we recognize that there are APIs defined under Kamara, data that sits inside of the mobile network that is fundamental to solving these problems. But if that service is not yet available, those customers will look for the next best option, and we constantly have this this battle of how do we solve our customer problems while we wait for the supply to kind of come online. So for me, getting that supply up online, making sure it's commercially viable, making sure it's performant, making sure it can deliver at scale, I think is something I would absolutely, it is essential that we that we see that. I think on the other side as well, I want to see I want to see more companies talking about customer success. I want to see more press releases of customers talking about what are they doing to actually realize the value. I sometimes feel at the moment Vonage is a little alone. We're one of the few companies that's actually putting out information and press releases with customer about talking about value. It's a hard thing to do, right? Customers often don't like talking about the value that they see and they derive. But I think we need more examples of real customers deriving value, talking about the ROI, talking about the TCO, talking about innovation and value creation, right? This is all about creating additional value where mobile networks and the mobile community are part of that value creation.
Excellent. It looks like we have enough to do in the next 11.5 months. Thank you both for being here, and I look forward to working together in the next in the time ahead, and I'll be back maybe 6 months from now to see how we're doing in the middle of the year. Thanks for being here, and talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot.